Hello, and welcome to That Recording Podcast, the podcast of conversations inspired by all things analog recording. I am your host, Joe Montague, also known as, are you that Beatles drums guy off Instagram? All you need is drums. Yes, that is me. And each episode, I'll speak with a different guest from all avenues of the recording world. You can expect discussions on everything from the mentality and philosophy of recording right down to the nerdy gear talk and everything in between. With guests ranging from industry legends to current music producers, engineers, musicians, and gear manufacturers. If you're like me and share my enthusiasm for hearing their stories and learning from their experiences, then this is the podcast for you. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your podcast player so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy this, please leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening. Obviously, 5 stars, please. And it really helps to grow the love for analog recording and helps me attract a variety of different guests. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show! Hello and welcome back to another episode of That Recording Podcast. I hope you've all had a lovely week. This week I'm continuing my conversation with Andy Cahan, and it begins by regaling stories of touring Australia with Little Richard. Love it. Absolutely love it. We're going to dive straight in. You'll enjoy this a lot. Off we go. That Recording Podcast is sponsored by Make Noise Pro Audio, the trusted source for new and used pro audio equipment. They also do repairs, so they are a veritable trifecta of audio accomplishment. Did you like that sentence? I was quite proud of that when I wrote that. A bit of, alliteration. There we go. Anyway, they have an incredible Instagram feed, and one of the things that I really love doing is every week they do a drop of the gear that they have had come in during the week. And I love scrolling through the stories, and there's usually 20 or 30 pieces that go up. And this is a bit weird, but I always play Guess the Price, because it's always really reasonable. And I must say that I am biased. I've been buying things from Make Noise for years. They're just such a great company. Obviously, I'm very grateful to them to be supporting this podcast, but I wouldn't be doing this if I just didn't think that they were brilliant. So do go and check them out at Make Noise Pro Audio on Instagram or makenoiseproaudio.co.uk on the interwebs. And on with the show! Did I read that did you tour Australia with Little Richard?
Yes. In fact, the cover... Wait, let me see. This picture was taken in Sydney, Australia, at the Hyatt Kingsgate in Sydney, where I stayed with Little Richard when we played in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, amazing.
And so that's what I looked like when I played with Richard.
Yeah.
And that was totally amazing. I mean... I couldn't believe how mumuch fun I was having.
Well, I mean, what were those shows like? I mean, what was the set list and the sort of pace of the shows? You know, he's just, you know, everyone's got this the stereotypical picture of Little Richard sort of standing up at a piano. And I mean, could you talk about those tours and just how that all felt?
Well, when I first met Little Richard, it was on the stage. We had no rehearsal. The drummer called me up the night before. And he said, we're going on the road with Little Richard tomorrow. Wow. I didn't even know. And so we just packed my bags, went to the airport, flew to the concert in Hershey, Pennsylvania. No rehearsal. I mean, you got to know Tutti Frutti, Rip It Up, Good Golly Miss Molly, all of his hits. They're all 3 chords. There's nothing to them. And so he would just start playing and everybody would jam along, and it was amazing. And we toured the United States, and then we went to Australia and New Zealand and did the Grammys and did American Bandstand and played in huge stadiums, sold out huge venues. Big.
What was the lineup of the band?
There were 3 horn players and a trumpet, saxophone, and trombone, and a guitar player, a bass player. I was on the Hammond B3, Little Richard, a drummer, and a guy played bongos. His name was Preston Epps, and in 1958 he had a #1 hit called Bongo Rock. so he was in the band too, and that was our touring band.
I mean, what was he like as a band leader to work for? Presumably, it was really great.
it was a breeze. I mean, it was just really easy. There was no stress. He was always happy, always dripping sweat all over the place, and he'd have a vial of cocaine like this, and he'd go through the whole thing before he'd go on the stage.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, he was just completely. He would jump up on top of a brand new Steinway grand piano, and with his shoes on, and jump around on top of the piano, and like scratch the lid and everything.
Oh, wow.
But nobody said anything because he was Little Richard.
Of course, yeah.
You can't say anything.
I mean, this for listeners, this may sound like a boring question, but I'm interested in it. What's the day-to-day life of touring back then? I mean, now, I'm kind of touring constantly in the theatre show I work for, and we are inundated with service stations, and it's the life on the road is fairly easy, to be honest with you. And there's lots of, but I can't. What must it have been? What was it like back then? What was the day-to-day? When you wake up in the hotel, what happens?
Well, yeah, it's the same scenario for everybody. I'm pretty sure. You wake up, you go down to the lobby, you check out, you get into the taxi, you go to the airport, you fly to your next gig, or you drive to your next gig, and then you have sound check, and then you go back to the hotel and you take a shower and have a little snack, and then you go to the gig, and then you eat all the backstage food, and then you go on the stage, and maybe you pick up a girl, maybe you don't, and then you go back to the hotel, and it was the constant traveling. Sometimes you wake up at 4:30 in the morning to catch an airplane, So there's.
But you were getting looked after. You're getting looked after on those tours. You got healthy riders, and you're not left wanting.
Yeah, I used to do all the advance.
Oh, did you?
For the Turtles, I did. The airfare, the hotels, the meet and greet, the backstage food. Getting paid. I did all that stuff.
How did that relationship come about? I've not asked you about the Turtles yet, but that's how did that? Because this is kind of early 70s now, isn't it? How did that all come about?
Well, this guy Scooby from the Musicians Union, who got me with Seals and Crofts, turned me on to Jimmy Carl Black, the Indian of the group with Frank Zappa. So we started a band in 1968 called Geronimo Black. And it was Jimmy Carl Black, Bunk Gardner, they were both with Zappa on the early stuff. Roy Estrada, the bass player with Zappa. Ray Collins, the lead singer, Help I'm a Rock. And we started a band called Geronimo Black. And then Frank Zappa decided to put out a movie called 200 Motels. And then he asked Jimmy Carl Black to be in the movie. And of course, Flo and Eddie of the Turtles were in the movie too. They were the lead roles in the movie. And Jimmy Carl Black did a song called Lonesome Cowboy Bert with Flo and Eddie singing the background vocals. So I went to the rehearsal and I met Frank Zappa and Flo and Eddie and Ian Underwood and Don Preston and, Ainsley Dunbar and all these other Frank Zappa musicians. And then Flo and Eddie were doing a recording session at the same studio that I was overdubbing Hammond B3 stuff for Little Richard on a movie called Let the Good Times Roll. And I was there in the studio, and Flo and Eddie were doing a soundtrack for a cartoon they wrote called Dirty Duck, which was later named Cheap. Anyway, so I'm in the studio with them, just hanging out. And they said, we're going on the road and we need a keyboard guy. Are you available? And I said, yeah. So that was September 1973. And then I was with the Turtles for 40 years.
So you must have got on well. I mean, that tour must have gone well.
Yeah, well, Flo and Eddie and I are all born in 1947. We're all the same age.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it was really terrific. I met everybody I could ever want to meet because I was in the Turtles. I met, I could just name drop all the great Tommy Rowe, Mickey Dolenz, what's his name? The Cowsills. The list goes on and on. I can't think of them right off the top of my head. Yeah. Harry Nilsson, Ringo Starr, Jimmy Webb, Linda Ronstadt, Grace Slick, all these people I met because of the Turtles.
Well, they've just got this reputation. I mean, obviously, "Happy Together" is such a positive song, and it's one of those. It's one of the songs that's persisted, and you wouldn't, even if you were at a function event now and it came on, you wouldn't bat an eyelid still. And there's not that many songs that can do that, and I think that's testament to how long that career has been. I mean, the fact that a band forms in the 60s and then carries on having a 40, 50-year career making music is crazy. I mean, what was the dynamic in the band, and how did it sort of operate, and your involvement in all of that side of things?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Howard Kalin is one of the best singers on the planet Earth. I mean, he can color his voice to anything. He can sound like Mick Jagger. He can sound like Paul McCartney. He can sound like Little Richard. He can sound like Pete Seeger. He was such a good singer. And Mark Volman, Flo and Eddie were very, very popular for singing on everybody's hit record. Mark Bolan, Bang a Gong, Get It On.
Yeah,
That's Flo and Eddie going, Bang a Gong, Get It On. That's Flo and Eddie singing the background. And Everybody's Got a Hungry Heart by Bruce Springsteen. That's Flo and Eddie singing the backgrounds. And Duran Duran and Blondie and what's his name? Todd Rundgren. And I mean, the list goes on forever and ever of all this hit records that Flo and Eddie sang on. And of course, their show was a comedy show like vaudeville.
See, I didn't realize this. I only found this bit out while I was doing my research about you. That's really surprised me. But in the same breath, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they were so funny. We would do parodies and make fun of George Harrison or Stevie Nicks or all these acts. And there was one time when we made fun of George Harrison for the Dark Horse tour where he lost his voice. Right. So Mark Volman gets up on stage and he goes, "Oh, my Lord, my sweet Lord." And he loses his voice. So Howard gets on the microphone and he says, "You're through, George. Take it, Billy." And so I played the part of Billy Preston. I put on this big afro with the Hollywood sunglasses, and I played the intro to Nothing from Nothing, dun, 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 and it was all comedy stuff. We did a 2.5-man show in Europe. It was just the three of us. I played the drum machine, bass with the keyboard and the piano, and Mark Volman was on guitar, and there was pre-recorded tracks of the Turtle hits. And we would do a vaudeville show with stuffed animals and a slideshow and all this weird stuff. So the career is amazing. This book is really amazing, because every page has a new story. There's tons of pictures that nobody's ever seen before, of all these celebrity musicians, and the stories are a lot of fun.
I'm excited to read it. I can't wait, and I'll put all the links and everything in there. I mean, I have to ask you before we wrap up that I know that you've come across Ringo Starr in your career. I need to know this story.
Oh, this is a wonderful story. 1968, I'm in my Hollywood apartment, and I'm playing the harpsichord. And all of a sudden, I get a premonition. I got a daydream that a Beatle came over to my house and sat down next to me with his shoes, takes his shoes off. And he sits down next to me, a Beatle. So later, in 1992, I was recording with Harry Nilsson in my living room. I met him through the Flo and Eddie, doing a radio show. So we're doing all these songs, and he invites Ringo Starr to come over to my house. And it was 100 degrees out, really hot. And so we had to turn off the air conditioner so the noise wouldn't get picked up on the mic. And so Ringo was doing this narration for children's stories. And Harry and I were going to do the background music with Van Dyke Parks.
Okay.
And so Ringo sits next to me, and he takes his shoes off. So my premonition from 1968 came true in 1992. I had a Beatle over my house, And then, ironically, a couple of years before I met Ringo, I was asked to do a Hammond B3 and background vocals on an album by Kinky Friedman. The name of the album was called Lasso from El Paso. And Ringo plays the part of Jesus Christ sitting on a toilet in the bathroom. and there's no toilet paper. So this is Ringo's narration in the middle of the song called Men's Room LA. And so I'm playing the organ behind Ringo with these angelical girl vocals, and they VSO'd the vocals so they're like, high, real high. So that was me playing behind Ringo's cameo on the song. And of course, I never met him, but I'm on a record with Ringo. And then later on, he comes over to my house. So
that's ludicrous. I mean, if you think back from the time when you first saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan to the fact that, the Ringo is in your house, that's ludicrous. I mean, that you must have. I mean, I'm imagining it as I'm speaking, and I'm struggling to find the words to what I would say at that point. I mean, you must have just been ecstatic with excitement that this superstar from your childhood, persistent superstar. I mean, he's still a superstar now. Was any project that you've got that you're working on with him is incredible, and then the idea that he's in your house is really incredible.
Well, even makes it even more exciting is that after the recording session, we hop in Harry's Mercedes and we take Ringo home to his house. So we're sitting at Ringo's living room, and he's got a red acoustic guitar and a blue acoustic guitar with the Ringo Starr on the fretboard. The Ringo Stars.
Oh yeah.
So we're sitting in his living room. Ringo's over there, Harry's over there. I'm across on another couch, and I look at the guitar and I say to Ringo, "Do you mind if I play your guitar?" He says, "No, go ahead." So I pick up the guitar and I start strumming in the key of G, right? I'm going, dim, jang, jang, dim, jang, jang. And then Harry starts singing in his baritone voice, "I listen for your footsteps coming up the drive." and then Ringo joins in harmony because the original song was in the key of C, but I was playing it in G. So Ringo starts singing a fifth above Harry, and so they were singing fifths, and it was hilarious playing this song with Harry Nilsson and Ringo in Ringo's living room. I mean,
yeah, ludicrous. I mean, he comes across as a very easygoing chap. I mean, he must have presumably. What year did you say this was? 92.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's in a positive place, and it must have been a really, I can imagine him being an easy person to work with at that time.
He was so sweet and so nice. You don't worry about the celebrity. I mean, you're sitting in your living room with Harry Nilsson and Ringo Starr. I mean, these guys are huge. So, at the end of the recording session, he says, would you like to hear a story about the Beatles? And Harry and I go, yeah, sure.
Of course.
So he says that Paul McCartney was on an airplane with Mal Evans. And Mal Evans, as we all know, was the major roadie guy with the Beatles. He would set up Ringo's drums. He would bring the amps out. He would, he was a bouncer at the Cavern. That's how they met him. But anyway, so Paul and Mal are on an airplane, and they're eating. And there's a salt and pepper shaker on the little tray. So Paul says to Mal, he says, "Mal, I want to do a fictitious album that's not the Beatles. I want to pretend that we're another band and make a story album, with a whole storyline, but we're not the Beatles. We're somebody else." And so Mal is sitting there eating, and he picks up the pepper, the pepper shaker, and he goes, "Well, how about Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band?" So it was Mal Evans that thought of the name Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band on the airplane with Paul McCartney. And this is from Ringo's mouth. This is Ringo telling the story.
Wow.
So that is an amazing story.
It's very cool. It's really, really cool. So where can people find out about your book if they want to?
Well, if you Google the most famous musician you never heard of, if you just, get on your microphone on your cell phone and say the most famous musician you never heard of, it'll pop right up. And my editor did a wonderful excerpt from the book, the Harry Nilsson chapter, and it's on bestclassicbands.com. But once you Google Andy Cahan or the most famous musician, it'll pop right up. It's available on Amazon, and in a good place to get.
I think over here Amazon is the only place that we can get it, and then there seems to be a myriad of places you can get it over there. I know you sell it directly from your site, don't you?
Yeah, like I will autograph copies, but the postage to England is like $58.
Yeah,
just to mail it. So it's much better to just buy the book over there in England.
Of course. So I mean, just to wrap things up, are you still making music now? What's happening now?
Absolutely. I have a band from Toronto, Canada. They're called the Dreamboats.
Oh, cool.
And they specialize in the 50s and the 60s. They do, Buddy Holly and Gene Vincent and the Beatles and Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis and all these Bill Haley and the Comets, all the 50s. And they're really, 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 really good. I mean, they are incredible. They put on a show. They do handstands. They break dance. They're doing all the 1950s rock and roll with their feet and their hands and jumping around and jumping on top of the drums and running out into the audience and jumping on tables. And they're just a really exciting show. And I'm performing with them at the Grammy Museum here in Los Angeles. And it'll be a 3-camera shoot. And it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much for speaking with me. You've got such a vivacity about you, and you radiate positivity. I love it.
Thank you. I love life and I love music, and there you go.
I mean, what else is there to love? That's it.
I'd love to see some of your videos of you playing drums, Ringo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If I'll email you my website after this, and we can. If you have a look, there's a video of me playing at Abbey Road on the top of my website. So I'll send you a full link of it, and you can check it out.
Oh, so you actually do bum 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 bum. It's I know that drum solo by heart.
Oh, it's the best. It's the simplest, most beautiful. You say it's simple. I mean, to play it left-handed in the way that Ringo does is really hard as a right-handed player.
I know, that's a great story with him being left-handed. Him and Paul are both left-handed. That's amazing.
That's the challenge with Ringo. Is as a right-handed player, just to I've spent 20 years playing right-handed and not thinking about leading with my right hand. I've had to completely readjust over the last 7 or 8 years how I think about leading with fills, and it's I always would lead with my left hand. I never would. Well, maybe sometimes I'd lead with my right hand. Yeah, it all depends. But Ringo had to turn it around. You've seen the videos of him telling the story of how it's not the same. No,
with his drum fill.
It really isn't.
And it actually gives it that much breathing room. So it's like, my favorite Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, John Lennon track is Good Morning, Good Morning, take number 8 or 9 on the anthology.
Anthologies, yeah.
It's just the 3 of them. And it's the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life. It's my best Beatle track is Good Morning, Good Morning with just John, Paul, and Ringo. Unbelievable.
Thank you so much for listening to That Recording Podcast today. I'll be back next week with more conversation all about analog recording. And for now, don't forget to hit subscribe, and please do share the podcast with friends or anyone else you think is as nerdy about recording as we are. If you'd like to follow me on socials, you can find the podcast on Insta at That Recording Podcast. For my adventures in Ringo nerdery and all things Beatles drums, it's at All You Need Is Drums. And if you're just curious about my work and recording and maybe the odd picture of me having a beer or hanging out with my wife and kids, it's at Joe Montague Drums. And in other exciting news, I have a TikTok. I don't really know what TikTok does or is, but my wife says I need to have it and it's cool, and I should tell you about it. So there we are, follow me on TikTok. Don't be a stranger, and see you next week. Goodbye!